Well, God bless everyone, and thank you so much for having me with you today. It's a blessing and a pleasure to be able to share with you all, and I pray that something that is said in this discussion will be a blessing to you and help to stabilize and strengthen each of us to be better witnesses for God. Let's have a word of prayer first. Father, in Jesus' name, I thank you for your blessing and your mercy that you have shown towards us, giving us an understanding of who you are as our Creator, giving us a desire and a will to submit our lives to you and to allow you to give us your salvation and then to help us, dear Lord, to be representatives of you in these last and evil days in this wicked world. We thank you for the blessing. We ask you to help us to be examples of the believer and help others to come to know you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, I'm going to talk to you about defending biblical truth by exposing atheist evolutionist tactics. And I think that this is a very important topic, especially in these days when so many are reluctant to be vocal about what they believe in Christ. But first, we have to talk about the importance of recognizing the times we're living in. First Chronicles chapter 12, verse 32 says, the children of Issachar, which were men that had understanding of the times, to know what Israel ought to do. Matthew 16, verses 2 and 3, Jesus rebuked the Pharisees and Sadducees for not being able to discern the signs of the times. And in Romans chapter 13, verse 11, Paul said, knowing that the times, we ought to recognize, because of the times, it is time to be awake out of our sleep. We should not be sleeping. We should be alert. And lastly, 1 Thessalonians 5, 6 through 8, Paul warns us not to sleep, but to be watchful and to be sober. That is the mentality the Bible says we as believers have to have in these last days. And it is very important. And it's important because Paul warns that the world is in a state of horrific rebellion. And with that state of rebellion, a lot of horrible things are happening in our society, and God called us to be lights. And the first casualty when a society turns its back on God is that the sky's the limit for any kind of belief system. And as a result, you see all kinds of ideologies. Religions are everywhere, and the vast majority of them are hostile towards our Christianity. So it's very important for us to be alert and to be aware of who we are and what our responsibilities are as believers here. It is very important that we, as believers, are sufficiently trained to deal with the opposition against our faith. It's not enough to recognize how dangerous times are and how many adversaries we have facing us. It is also important that we prepare ourselves and understand the importance of preparing ourselves to deal with those oppositions. Far too many of us, because we are not properly taught, we either enter into discussions with unbelievers and we are very cocky, we're very confident, even though we haven't done our homework. We look something like this. And that goes on for a while until we get deep into the conversation. And then by the time they're through with us, we look more like this. And there's a reason for that. That should never happen to a Christian in a conversation about truth. But to prevent that, we must take the time to sufficiently educate ourselves, and we have the means to do so. Not only the school that you're at right now, I'm sure they have all kind of material to help you nurture yourself and to become the kind of believer that you are supposed to be, and to be able to defend your faith the way you're supposed to be able to defend it. But we also have other organizations like Answers in Genesis, Creation Ministries International, ICR, Institute for Creation Research, and Biblical Science Institute, Creation Today, and many others, all of whom have top-notch creation scientists who have and are providing quality material that can be used for our training and equipping for public engagement with opposition. So why is this kind of talk important? Because of the state of our society and the role that evolution teaching in higher and lower public education played in getting us to where we are right now. Well, we're going to talk about where we are, but the public school system played a major role in getting us there. Understanding the history of how we got here can play an important role in reminding us of what we have to fight for and what we are fighting against. So we have to use the right sources in order to examine that history, because one of the tactics that our opposition uses is that they will take the history and they will revamp it and revise it in order to make them look good and to make us look bad. So if you're going to do history, if you're going to search the history, you got to be very selective and careful about the kind of history sources that you use. And I recommend a book called The Long War Against God by the late Dr. Henry Morris. This book is an amazingly informative book. And the reason it's amazing is because it deals with history, past and present, as it relates to humanity, sin, spiritual wickedness, and the role that evolution played in it. It focuses on the central role of evolution in the condition of our society, even in past, present, and what will happen in the future. In this book, Dr. Morris names and many of the major players that play a role in the evolution development and the dominance of evolution in our society today. And he provides receipts. He explains how all-encompassing evolution is and why pastors as well as Christian educators should be making fighting against evolution a priority. Now, this is something that's very important. I think that one of the reasons why so many religious leaders don't realize how important fighting evolution is because they've allowed evolutionists to explain to them that evolution is harmless. And this is one of those tactics that they use. I call it the lie tactic, where they will give misinformation in order to pacify religious people so that they don't take the threat of evolution as serious as they should. And this happens quite often. And I've talked to pastors, and I can see the attitude that they have. They've been confused as to the seriousness and the serious threat that evolution poses. Throughout Morris's book, he explains how evolution got its stranglehold on our society and our nation through our education system. And remember, in history, what happened was that they targeted our gold standard college, Harvard University, and they got one of their people into that university and became one of its leaders. And when Harvard fell, after Harvard fell, many of the other colleges started falling behind it, and eventually they took over our school systems. So now, the fact that we have this problem is easy to say, but it's even more helpful when you can demonstrate it by having someone who's experienced what's going on in that system. So here's a very short clip from a documentary called Expelled, No Intelligence Allowed, where we have someone who was not even a creationist, but who had the audacity to allow the term intelligent design to be allowed into a paper that was peer reviewed, and it got him in a heck of a lot of trouble with his institution. Watch this.
We directly ahead of us is the west wing of the Natural History Museum.
But now you're not there anymore because you're a bad boy.
No, I'm not. No, I was exiled.
You're a bad boy. You question the powers that be. What was Dr. Sternberg's crime? He dared to publish an article by Dr. Stephen Meyer, one of the leading lights of the intelligent design movement. The paper ignited a firestorm of controversy merely because it suggested intelligent design might be able to explain how life began. As a result, Dr. Sternberg lost his office, his political and religious beliefs were investigated, and he was pressured to resign.
The questioning of Darwinism was a bridge too far for many. The mentioning of intelligent design that occurs at the end of the paper was over the top. And I think the intelligent design proponents have raised a number of very important questions.
And you wanted to get those questions brought up and discussed.
Placed on the table.
Placed on the table.
People were so upset about it. They were so upset that you could see they had a physical, emotional reaction.
Wow.
They were saying that Stephen C. Meyer is a well-known Christian, that Stephen C. Meyer is an intelligent design proponent, that Stephen C. Meyer is a Republican. It was all couched in terms of religion, politics, and sociology. The way the chair of the department put it is that I was viewed as an intellectual terrorist.
Terrorist.
Because of giving the topic of intelligent design some modicum of credibility.
Now, think about that. This is someone who just had the gumption to make the information available to the students, and he got canned for it. Now, there are people on the evolutionist side who will deny that this is happening. And here's an example.
They are free to write and publish and be heard in public forums and go to conferences just like everybody else does.
But what if a person published something that the Smithsonian in favor of intelligent design and lost his job? And it had been peer reviewed, and published, and then he lost his job over it anyway. What would happen?
Well,
That situation.
I think that particular situation, there was something else going on.
What was
That-
going on?
I don't know, because I don't know, but I think there had to be something. People don't get fired over something like that. You roll up your sleeves, you get to work, you do the research, you get your grants, you get your data, you publish, and you work your butt off, and that's how you get your theories.
But wait a minute, what if you try and roll up your sleeves and go to work and work your butt off, and they say, well, we're going to fire you?
The importance of that clip, it shows you that they will tell you that this kind of thing does not happen. And that is a tactic. In other words, they deny things that are happening that they're doing that is corrupting, things that they're doing that is unrighteous or illegal. And if you believe it, you give them the incentive to continue to do it. So our responsibility to respond to that is to document, to bring them the receipts and document and prove to them that this kind of thing is happening. Dr. Jerry Bergman did a excellent 3-volume books on the topic of the kind of effect that is being put on people who believe in Jesus and who believe in creationism. And when they're in the academic arena, what kind of response they're getting. Many of them are getting fired. They are getting targeted. And many of them lose tenure just because they dare to support true science against evolution. And not only does it have the effect of affecting people's livelihood while they're working, but it also prevents people who are in education, student and academia, from learning about the truth that actually refutes evolution. See, if the education departments and education institutions only permit one side of the story, and you go through the grade school, junior high school, all the different set levels, and you never get exposed to the counter or the evidence against evolution, this is what happens.
This time, I believe that Darwinian evolution explains what we saw in biology, not because I saw how it could actually explain it, but because I was told that it did explain it. And in schools, I was taught Darwinian biology. And through college and graduate school, I was in an atmosphere which just assumed that Darwinian evolution explained biology. And again, I didn't have any reason to doubt it. It wasn't until about 10 years or more ago that I read a book called Evolution: A Theory in Crisis by a geneticist by the name of Michael Denton, an Australian. And he put forward a lot of scientific arguments against Darwinian theory that I had never heard before. And the arguments seemed pretty convincing. And at that point, I started to get a bit angry because I thought I was being led down the primrose path. Here were a number of very good arguments, and I had gone through a doctoral program in biochemistry, became a faculty member, and I had never even heard of these things.
Good.
And so from that point on, I became very interested in the question of evolution, and since have decided that Darwinian processes are not the whole explanation for life.
Through a doctorate program, he had gotten to a doctorate program and had never heard of any arguments against evolution. That's how effective they are. That's how extensive their control is of the education institutions. And that's on us. This is why we need to understand what they are doing and the detriment of what they're doing, so that it can motivate us to start taking action, start strategizing, and finding ways to force these institutions to start allowing both of the arguments to be heard. Now, many years ago, before they took over, when creationism was the main teaching concept in schools, they kept demanding that they get equal time. They kept demanding that we were being unfair. And so now that they have the power, you would think that we would make the same demands, but it seems like there isn't enough complaints and enough strategizing and enough actual action being taken on our part to force these people to start allowing us to have a seat at the table and to begin to teach the truth, because we have the truth and they don't. Their dominance in a school system gives them power over the media and press as well, because if the school system is predominantly evolutionist, then the media is going to support that evolution. And that's exactly what's been happening. And Time magazine is a very well-known culprit for this. They published a magazine article called The Evolution Wars by Claudia Wallace. And of course, in this magazine article, they did not treat intelligent design fairly. They did not treat creationists fairly, but they really, the purpose of the magazine article was to support evolution against creationism and to coin intelligent design and creationism in terms of religion while coining evolution in terms of science. This is one of their tactics. They will continually phrase creationism or creation science and any kind of ID teaching as purely religion and unscientific, while they call anything that is evolutionist or Darwinist pure true science. The fact that they get away with this so often, that also is on us. In another magazine, in Times, a magazine issue called God versus Science, they did the same thing. Strange thing about these two magazine articles is that the people that they interviewed were either evolutionists themselves or intelligent design proponents who believed in some form of evolution. What they did not do is invite anyone who was a young earth creationist to the table. And I found that interesting. They put people up like the God versus Science put people up like Francis Collins as our representative and from BioLogos. And you know that guy is not, I doubt if he's even a Christian. But they do this to weaken our side to the world and make their side seem more potent. So again, now I did an article response to both of these magazines articles, and I did it, and I'm telling you that I did it because this is one of my responses to these kind of tactics. If we do not respond in kind when these people put out fraudulent or misleading information, if we do not respond to it instantly, accurately, and concisely, then we contribute to the effect and the dominance that they have over us. I hope we can talk about that during our Q&A. All right, let me get some Bible in here. There's no question that the Bible teaches us that evolution is not how God did it. We have Bible verses, and as a Christian, as a believer, and as a creationist, you should prepare yourself by being very familiar with what those scriptures are. Here they're listed first in Genesis chapter 1, 10 times he uses the phrase after its kind. 1 Corinthians chapter 15, Paul says that there are different kinds of flesh. There's all kinds of flesh. There's one kind of flesh of men or humans, another kind of flesh of beasts, another kind of flesh of fish, another kind of flesh of birds. So he made very clear that biologically we were not the same. And I think that it's important for us to understand that when evolutionists approach biology, they're constantly trying to tie us all together to make it seem like we all came from the same one life form. And that's a travesty, but we have to push back on them. And one way we push back on them, and I don't hear it being done very often or not enough, is that we let them create the terminology. I was in a conversation with a paleontologist, Dr. Christine Janis, years ago, and she used the term mammal when she was referring to humans, and I told her that I was not a mammal. And of course, it tickled her pink because she just felt, oh, wow, this just proves how ignorant these people are. And she made fun of me. And I didn't feel offended by it. I was glad that she thought that it was funny, but I didn't allow her to make me accept that term, because the term mammal is not a term that the Bible gives human beings. And the term connects us to animals in a way that evolutionists wants to connect us. So this is just one example of how we have to stop allowing their terminology tactics to control the discussion. Romans chapter 1, verse 20, Paul tells us that everything we see in creation is an expression of the invisible God, and it is the evidence of the invisible God. So we as Christians have got to stop permitting atheist evolutionists from making us feel intimidated or foolish or ashamed because we believe the Bible. The Bible is the baddest book in the library. It is the best book that man has ever received or ever will receive. And we need to start taking pride of it and using it in our defense against the enemy. Another important thing that I have to address, because this is also a tactic that they use against us. Not all of us are nice people. Not all of us conduct ourselves properly. Not all of us behaves ourselves. Some of us who get saved or become Christians, we tend sometimes to forget where God brought us from. And when we get a little bit of knowledge or information, we get cocky and boastful, and we start mistreating people or verbally abusing them. And we got to be very careful that we do not do that, because when we do that, we give the enemy cause to condemn people of God. In Ephesians chapter 4, verse 15, the Bible tells us we are supposed to speak the truth in love. And 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 14, Paul says that we are not to give any occasion to the adversary to speak reproachfully against us, which means that we should not do anything that gives them a justifiable reason to say something negative about us. And we all have to be accountable for that. I can't tell you how many times when I've been involved with debates online, and I had to not only debate the atheist evolutionists who were trying to discredit us, but I had to talk to people who were Christians who were responding to them with such venom and such disrespect and rudeness that it was difficult for me to get through to them. And so it's very important for us to remember this. This is a very serious matter. And when we do that, we give them ammunition against us. And we don't want to do that. Paul says in Romans the second chapter, verse 24, he said that the name of the name of God is blasphemed among the Gentiles through you, referring to the Jews. And so that's a very shameful thing. We should never let that happen to us. We must be dedicated to excellence in our message. And when we engage the opponent, we should use intelligent, accurate, and reliable material. Because when we use bad material, when we act foolishly and badly, we only help the enemy. We can't let them control the rules. And this is very important also. And I'm going to use Mr. Philip Johnson. He passed away not a while ago. But Philip Johnson was a lawyer, a brilliant lawyer, and he was a brilliant arguer. And he examined evolution from a legal perspective, from a logical legal perspective, and he drove the atheist evolutionists crazy. And when he published a book called Reason and Balance, they responded to his book, and he took on all challengers. But he noticed that the people who were responding to his book, and again, this is a tactic, so listen very carefully. The people who responded to his book did not really refute his arguments, but they used other tactics in order to avoid having to deal with the facts. In the introduction, on page 12, he shares the experience of that face-off. Notice what he says. As the debate progressed, it became clear that very little of the degree of disagreement turned out to be a dispute over facts. And practically everything turned on the proper rule of scientific investigation, how science works. Now, I put those emphases in there because what's happening here is that they want to tell us what science is and what science is not, and what we can and cannot discuss. And we have to stop letting them do that. Philip Johnson, he understood that, and he challenged him on that. He continued, "Two things about my approach to the subject seem to baffle and sometimes infuriate my critics." He says, first, I insisted on distinguishing naturalism from science, whereas my critics insisted that the two are virtually the same. Did you catch that? They wanted to put him in a box in which he perceived science only the way they said science is supposed to be perceived. But my question is, who gave them that authority? And why do we allow them to keep that authority? He continues, my purpose was to show that what is presented to the public as scientific knowledge about evolutionary mechanism is mostly philosophical speculation. Please notice that word. And is not even consistent with the evidence. Once the naturalistic spectacles are removed. I hope you got that. When you remove the naturalistic confinement on the approach to science, there is no way that we can lose this discussion. And again, this is why we can't allow them to control the language. This is why we cannot allow them to control the words. This is why we cannot allow them to control the rules or the conversation. Because when we do, they win. I'm going to tell you this. If you're in a chess game and you let your opponent violate all the rules of chess, there's no way you're ever going to win. I don't care how good you are. There are rules that have to be to govern, and there have to be rules that are agreed on by both parties if we're going to have a conversation. So this is very important. Now, just give you a little bit of information about myself. I started this evolution examination and defense and refutation back about 20 years ago. And I only did so not because my church was teaching against it, because they weren't saying anything about it, but I happened to come across a certain minister who specialized in creation evolution arguments. And by listening to him talk, and I'll tell you what his name was, please don't get offended. His name was Ken Hovind. And I'm not talking about the Ken Hovind of today, but I'm talking about the Ken Hovind back in the day. Back in the day, this man was the bomb. And he was a force to be reckoned with. He was very well prepared, very proficient and efficient in his delivery. And I was very impressed by the way he handled himself when he was talking to and talking with atheist evolutionists. As a matter of fact, I took an atheist friend of mine, that I had been witnessing to for a while. I took him to Rutgers University when Kent Hovind was debating there, and he was debating a biology professor at Rutgers. And I made him sit down and watch the debate. And after we got over the debate, and we on our way home, I asked him who he thought won the debate, and he admitted, as an atheist, that Kent Hovind creamed him. So my point here is that all of us have experiences where we got to the point where we begin to realize how important this was. It's our job to help other people, other believers, understand how important this is. I started devouring the material I found on Answers in Genesis, Creation Ministries International, ICR. I devoured everything I could find because I wanted to be prepared to talk to these people whenever I had a chance to talk with them. They have a tendency of making fun of these organizations. And that's intentional because they do that to make you think that those organizations and organizations like them are not scientifically potent and that they are a waste of time and don't know what they're talking about. I don't let them get away with that. And you shouldn't either. In fact, when they make fun of them, you know that they must be doing something right. My major encounters now were with some evolutionists on Amazon. I'll tell you how it happened. Dr. Carl Warner, who published a book called The Evolution of Grand Experiment, he sent me a copy of it and he asked me if I would do a review of it on Amazon because there was a school system out in Arizona, I believe it was, who was considering to have the book in their curriculum. And so I did the review of the book and on Amazon, posted on Amazon, and I mean everybody and their grandmother who were among the atheist evolutionists came after me. And I mean they tried to destroy my review. They tried to make me look like a fool, and it forced me, of course, to defend myself. And I did not realize how much fun that was until I did it. It was such a great time. I had such a great time. But two people that was on that was in those debates eventually showed up actually they were there when I got there, was Christine Janis, paleontologist, and David Levine. He's a professor of molecular biology, molecular and cell biology. And he wasn't there first. Christine was there. And we went on for some time. And then she got tired of me and got upset with me because I kept zinging her. She would not admit this, but she got so tired of me and zinging her that she went and got Dr. Levine from another thread and asked him to come over and help me. The funny thing about this was that I had been telling her throughout the debate that I was embarrassing her. And the reason why she had stayed there so long was because she knew that she had been embarrassed and she was trying to do damage control. She denied that was happening. And so I think that by me saying that helped her to stay there a little longer. But eventually she disappeared for a while. And I thought, okay, I proved myself right. I figured after a while she would run. And so I waited for a while I was dealing with other people, and then all of a sudden somebody came on our thread, and he said, "Oh man, Dan, you rock." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Man, Christine Janice is over on another thread on Amazon asking the scientists over there to come over here to help her deflate you." I laughed. Oh, we just had a great laugh. It was so funny to hear that because I was shocked. I was surprised to hear that. So, but we had a great time. As a matter of fact, I think I zinged her and embarrassed her so much that she started threatening me. Again, another one of those tactics. She said to me, "I'm going to write about you in my next book." That's what she told me. And to her, that was a threat, but to me, that was high praise. So I tell you, if you really take the time to study, do your due diligence, you can handle these people no matter what kind of degrees that they have. This debate went on Amazon for about at least 7 or 8 months. I think I counted 9 months, maybe 9 months. And over 400 pages of posts, it was 4,000 posts, something like 4,900 when I left. But I think Dr. Carl Warner told me that when he looked, it was like 5,000. So imagine 5,000 posts in a debate going on, and we really had a great time. But these two people, I think I embarrassed them. And I think that my brother Mark Havel, a guy that had was from Europe, that was on the same debate as I was, and we were both basically tag teaming to clean these people's clock, and we had a great time. Mark Havel eventually ended up flying. He was from Europe. He ended up flying over here from Europe to America because he wants, and he visited me in my house. We spent some weeks together, so we can talk about maybe doing a book deal to kind of like write about the kind of experience we had online. That never came to fruition. And in fact, I just got to talk to him again today after so many years. And so we're going to get together again. But I just want to share that with you, let you know that this is not an impossible thing to do. And I think that we have got to stop allowing these people to intimidate us. Several of the tactics that these people used while we were online was a variety of intimidation tactics. Let's go through some of these intimidation tactics. One of them is that they just tell you that you're stupid, too dumb to know what you're talking about. They're smarter than you are, and therefore you don't really have a say in the matter, or you shouldn't be arguing with them. And that could be a very, very effective argument if you haven't done your homework. But if you've done your homework and they're there arguing with you and you're able to refute some of the things they're saying, that refutes their "I'm smarter than you" argument. It makes no difference how smart they are. They may have a degree you don't, but the point is, who's doing the best when it comes to answering the questions honestly? So never let them intimidate you by throwing their degree at you. One time I told Christine Janice that she was tripping over her degree. I think that kind of got up under her skin too. Intimidation is one of those tactics. Another tactic is humiliation. If they can't intimidate you, they'll try to humiliate you. They will attack you personally. And so as a result of that, I think that I need to give you fair warning. If you are a person that has uh, wear your emotions on your sleeves, as they say, this is not the field for you. If you're a person that gets easily offended, you should not be out there trying to defend the faith with people who are hostile. And it doesn't mean you can't do anything. We're all a part of the same body. And the hand's not the eye's not the leg. We all have different parts to play. Some of us are better equipped emotionally and psychologically to be able to deal with this kind of thing without getting stressed out and frustrated. I have seen a lot of Christians try to get out there in these media and in these platforms and tough it out, duke it out with people when they know that they don't have the patience and they don't have the emotional stability to do so, and that can do damage to you. So please be wise. If you can't do it yourself, find somebody that can and help them train to be able to. You can be their their sidekick basically. All right. So when they try to humiliate you, let me give you an example of this humiliation because I think this is important. During one of my debates on Amazon, I think I was zinging these atheist evolutionists so badly that they realized that they couldn't shut me up, and the more they talked to me, the more embarrassed they were. So rather than try to refute my arguments about creationism and my arguments against evolution, one of them went on his computer and did a detailed, deep background search of me. I kid you not. And he actually found a real old, way back in the past, lien that I had received from the IRS because of a tax bill that I didn't pay. He took that information, came to our thread, posted it on our thread, and told everybody that was on the thread that this is a good reason why they shouldn't listen to me, because I was a dishonest person. Now, that's a true story. And they cracked me up. I was so, and other people who got how ridiculous it was, laughed them off. But it was so funny to see how far they would go to try to humiliate me in order to shut me up. But this is the mindset of these people. This tells you this is not about science. This is really more than science. This is about more than science. I don't know what happened to my, oh, this is about more than science. This is about a religious ideology that affects people's thinking. It motivates them to reject truth. I'm not sure. I can't go. I'm not sure how to go back. But some of the other tactics besides humiliation is there's a tactic that they use called lying. They will tell bold-faced lies just because they want to win an argument. If you do not check out what they say to verify it, they will get over. And I see this happening a lot. I see people many times, even when they're in major debates, I see atheist evolutionists lie in a debate about a topic or a subject, and the person who's debating them don't know that what they're saying is a lie, and they never challenge them on it. So that's why it's important to know your stuff. And when you catch them in a lie, make sure you expose it to them and force them to acknowledge it. During our debate on Amazon, David Levine mentioned that he was in a debate with Jonathan Safadi from Creation Ministries International, and he told the people on the thread that he had cleaned Jonathan's clock, and that Jonathan refused to debate him, refused to respond to his brilliant attacks against Jonathan's work. And so, I mean, he really made a big thing out of it. And so, but what he didn't know was that I had been on that thread, and I had looked at that discussion, and I had read it. So I knew what the details were. So when he made the statement, I posted him. I said, well, David, what you should do is be more honest in what you're being, because I happened to read that debate. I happened to be on there, and I saw the debate. And what you didn't tell them was that Jonathan was there to discuss and debate his book. And you insisted and persisted on trying to get him to debate on some other issue. And he told you he was not going to do that. We could do that at another time, another place, but he was there for the book. If you want to refute the book, he was there to clean your clock on that. And he never told his public that. So this is an example of how they just will say things that they know is not true, but their goal is to embarrass people. So we have to be aware of these tactics. There's a variety of others. I think I finished, when I finished, I had gotten up to about 13 different tactics that they use that I personally experienced being online and debating with some of these people. But I don't want to take up too much time. I want to make sure we have time for our Q&A. So just in case you want to contact me, I have my contact information there. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Rumble. I'm on my website is afjm.net. And I'm also have a Booksy account, and I have some great articles on there also. Please let me know if I can be of any help with anything. I'm retired now, so I'm pretty much available to do a lot of things. So if we can encourage each other and encourage our young people especially to learn how to become good debaters, good witnesses, we can really do some damage to the kingdom of darkness, and we can really flip some things around. It is my desire to see us start strategizing and putting plans and programs together that will actually target them the way they target us. And I don't mean just talk about them and write about them, but I mean go to them and challenge them. I mean go to their remember, I talked about the news media, how they are on board with this evolution stuff, and Hollywood as well. But go to these newspapers when you see them publish an article that is a bold-faced lie. Get a group of scientists, a group of people, go to the newspaper and demonstrate outside the newspaper and challenge the person that published the article to come and debate you and discuss it. This is the kind of thing that we have to do as people of God if we are going to turn the table on these people. Now, we may never get it completely undone because they're so deeply enrooted that we may never get them out. But I'll say two things before I end and turn it over. One is I am very upset that we let them do it in the first place, because somebody dropped the ball and was not paying attention and was not fighting as it should, and they let them take control. And two, we have to stop letting this be just the status quo. And like Dr. James Tour, the chemist Dr. James Tour, that's my boy now. Years ago, he was very passive, but now, and I had an email conversation with him, and he kind of got upset with me because I was putting the pressure on him. But now he's out there in the front line, putting the pressure on them about lying about the origin of life. So we have a lot of great people out there doing great things. Dr. Jason Lau, astrophysicist, Terry Mortensen in geology, Dr. Carl Warner, who's doing an amazing job with the material that he's putting out. I mean, I love that man. He's a great brother. Um, we have plenty of great people doing great things. Let us take advantage of their material, learn the material well, represent the material well, and let's clean some clocks of these atheists. God bless you.
Where do plants fit into all this?
Here's my policy. Whenever I'm talking with an atheist evolutionist, as I said now in my talk, I don't let them control the conversation. Because for two reasons. Number one, I know that their goal is not to get to the truth. And number two, they're going to do anything that they can to distract from the real issue. So if we talk about plants and monkeys and finch beaks and peppered moths and the time of day and the time of night, we're never going to get to the truth. What I do is I ask them as a creationist, since they're so dedicated to evolution, I ask them, what is your best evidence that substantiates your belief that evolution is how all life began? That's the answer. And usually plants are not in the conversation, because plants are far, and even in their philosophy, in their teaching, plants are farther away from us than animals are. So that's never an issue with me. Plants is never an issue. And again, you have to understand, we understand the fact that there's no such thing as Darwinian evolution. So I don't let them bring up these trivial. One of the tactics that they use is they bring up trivial topics, and then they create stories around them, and they try to tie you up in all the intricacies of those little stories, but they go nowhere, and they're meaningless. I mean, no matter how much you know about a plant, you can never prove that a plant evolved into something else or to a plant from something else. So I keep them at the foundation of the conversation, and I force them to stay there. We have to understand this is a very, very important part of this battle. If you do not control the conversation, they will take you down that rabbit hole, and they will use their science jargon to keep you there, because all they have to do is avoid admitting that evolution is not true and that creationism is true.
What is the name of the book that Dr. Levin wrote?
David Levine he's an atheist evolutionist. He didn't write. I'm not sure what book he wrote. He is a molecular biologist, but he's an atheist. He's the one I was debating. The book that I used to debate the articles that I used to debate him with, because he got me on the subject of the human chimp similarities. He tried to claim that humans and chimps were 98% similar. He didn't know that I had read an article by Jeff Tompkins and Dr. Jerry Bergman, and what they did in that article was that they reviewed those who they researched the researchers, the people who did the research to come up with that 98%, and they published and they lied about the research. They found a section in the male and a human and a section in the chimp that were similar, and they published a paper giving the impression that the entire genome on both sides were similar of 98%, and that wasn't true, because at that with either the chimp or the human, one of the genes and Jerry Bergman did, and it's online. It should be on Answer Genesis website. It exposed all of the fallacies and all the lies that they told about that research. And so I had that information going into my discussion with David Levine. And I think it embarrassed him, because he started off our conversation by telling people on the thread that creationists never debate the topics, that they always talk, but they never debate the science. So I said, okay, well, let's debate the science. And I debated him. And I have it all. I saved the transcript, and I created a copy of it so that he wouldn't be able to lie later on about what took place. Now, and that's another thing I would like to encourage you all to do. If you ever get into a conversation with somebody, try to find a way to record it if you're going to debate them or dialogue with them, because what they tend to do is they'll tend to lie about how that debate and discussion turned out. I'm sorry for getting so far off the topic, but I thought I'd get that in there, because it does happen a lot, and people never get the benefit of knowing that you did good if you did good, because they're going to lie on you. When Ken Ham was interviewed by media at his Answer Genesis, they did an interview of him, and then when the interview came out in the public, it made him look like a fool. So I called Kent and I said, Kim, this interview was horrible. Is that really how it turned out? And he said that wasn't the way it was at all. They left out all the important stuff that made him look right, and they made him look stupid. I said, well, did you record it? And he said, no. They didn't even record their own interview, and that was a big mistake. So, yeah, but David Levine did not. He I don't know what book he wrote, and if he wrote a book, I wouldn't read it. I wouldn't trust it. Very dishonest man, and he doesn't like Christians at all and creationists at all.
Do you have any debates on YouTube?
Good question. No, I don't, and I've intentionally haven't done that yet because I haven't really done any verbal debates. Most of my debates have been in writing, online. I haven't been given an opportunity. As a matter of fact, I did challenge Christine Janice. No, but not Christine Janice. I challenged Jean Redhill. Her name is Jean Redhill. And because she was another I think she was another paleontologist on Amazon, and she refused to debate me. So, but I did save the transcript of the dialogue that we had. So I'm planning on taking those dialogues that I done, and I'm going to be putting them together so that people, in abbreviated, in smaller, shorter form, just going point by point, all the important points, and let people see those. So I'll be putting those up online for the next two or 3 weeks.
He mentions naturalism. I just kind of want to know more about the definition of that versus creationism, I guess is.
No problem. Understood. And again, and this is a good question. I think it's good that you are interested in terms, because if you're going to talk with these people, you really have to understand the language. If you don't understand the language, they'll make mincemeat out of you and they'll run you around in circles. When you understand the language, then you'll know when they're talking foolishly, when they're not. And naturalism simply is the philosophy that there is no God, there is no need for God. Everything that happens in life happens naturally. Everything that happens in biological life happens naturally. That's basically what naturalism is. Naturalism is the argument, the belief, the philosophy, the science. They call it science. It's not really science. But it is the perspective that there is no divinity. There is no such thing as God. And therefore, everything that we see in life came about naturally. Everything has to have a natural cause. And everything biological, everything living does have a natural cause. That is the argument. And that's, again, something that we have to stop permitting them to get away with. Now, because naturalism is never has been a part of true science. Naturalism is an invention of the atheist to bar God from the conversation. Naturalism is invented to prevent us as creationists, from including God in our conversation and in the discussion, because they know that once he comes in, they lose. So, and this is also why they create so many lies about evolution. They have to find as much ways they can to make it seem as feasible as possible, so that the more feasible it seems, the less likely it will be for us of them to be co-opted by the truth. And that's why we can't let them get away with these language, with using this type of language. We can't let them get away with making up stories about the way how a fossil creature, when it was alive, how it looked. We can't let them get away with putting pictures out with apes or monkeys, or with apes with white in their eyes. We can't let them keep getting away with finding 2 or 3 bones and then creating a statue or a full figure with arms, legs, limbs. We have to let them get away with this kind of stuff. Because when we let them do this without making them know that we know it's not true, and basically embarrassing them in the public, they're going to keep doing it. So that would be my suggestion. Naturalism makes no sense, and it's a great place to attack them on, or to rebut their arguments about evolution.
You mean Nebraska man isn't real?
And neither is Piltdown Man. And Lucy was no lady.
Where do you post those transcripts? Where would somebody find those?
My website is afjm.net. I'm also going to put them on my my Substack. My Substack is Danzel SR, I believe. And I will send um Ross and them gentlemen links to all of those information guys you want, in case you want them, because I'm just kind of now realizing I should have got this stuff together and started transcribing all this stuff. I have all of it in my library, but I'm going to transcribe, go over it, make sure everything is correct and accurate, and then I'll make sure I put them up, and I'll make sure you guys have a link to it. I have some fun stuff. It's some very exciting stuff. I mean, the conversation me and David Levine had, I actually I made a transcript of it and put it in more of a point by point a format, and it's very interesting. I mean, literally very interesting. And to tell you how that conversation with him ended, he literally ended up running for me. During after I zinged him on the human chimp dialogue, he he said that he didn't think I really wanted to hear the answer to his question, so he wasn't going to answer, and he stopped talking to me. But this is after a very long period of time of talking, so you obviously know that he thought he had the goods, and he was going to really make me look foolish and clean my clock. But I have the receipts to prove that he didn't do that.
All right, so I got a couple questions. So where do you have most of these interactions, and where do you go? Because like I do, I just graduated college, and it was a good spot, and I did a lot of witnessing. Praise the Lord.
Great.
So I did a lot of in-person stuff. Would you have any tips for in-person stuff?
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah, I worked at a college for 30 years before I retired, and so while at the college, I started a club called the Christian Club, and it lasted for 30 or the whole 30, all 30 years while I was there. And as a result of that, I insisted on anytime we had an event that dealt with touchy issues like evolution, I would leave all the front seats vacant and empty, and only to be occupied by atheists. The club members didn't understand why I did that. One of them was even upset with me for doing it. And so he kept asking me, he said, why would you do that? You know, he was really upset. And so I sat him down and I said, well, you have to understand that, brother, that atheists are our biggest competition and they are our biggest threat. And so I said, they're like the big bully in the neighborhood. If you take them down, everybody else is going to be no problem. So I said, I want them to feel comfortable, and I want them to bring their comfort and cockiness to the ball game. And I want to sit them down and let them throw their questions, and I want to humiliate them in front of everybody to let them know that they aren't as smart as they think they are or thought they were. And when people see it, they will be less intimidated by them. And I said, when they see that we know more than they thought we knew, they won't be so cocky. And that was exactly what happened. I would always leave it open. They would come, they would sit there, they start off very cocky and very rude and disrespectful. And after I answered a few of their questions, refuted a few of their arguments, their whole personality and demeanor changed. So I did that for years. Most of my interaction now is not person to person. I think why one of the reasons I'm having a problem finding people like that to be willing to have a dialogue with me person to person.
that's very true.
Let me give you another example. Okay, at the college, I had many encounters with the professors there, who were atheists and evolutionists, and every time we had a conversation, I won. And these are people with PhDs. And one lady, she asked me if I would. One professor asked me if I would please explain to her. I was in the cafeteria eating. She sat down at my table. She said, "I heard that you don't believe in evolution." And I said, "That's correct." She says, "Oh, that's crazy. I can't believe that. How could you not believe in evolution?" And it was like she was so awestruck by the fact that I could dare to be willing to admit it. So I said, "Well, I can't believe that you do believe in evolution." That's amazing. And so she said, "Don't you?" I said, "Tell you what." I said, "Give me your information, your evidence for evolution." And so she gave me the usual dribble, and I shot down every one of them. And so I said to her, I said, "Now, do you still believe in evolution?" She said, "Yeah, I still can't believe why you don't believe in evolution." So I said, "Now, ma'am, I just sat here and refuted every one of your evolution arguments. You have refuted none of my creation arguments. You have rebuffed none of my evolution refutations. And yet you say that you still believe it, and you're amazed that I don't believe it." I said, "Can you tell me what's wrong with this picture?" So the point here I'm saying is that I had fun. I really did have fun. Now I only go online. I spend time online. Usually when I've done I don't do reviews anymore because I think we broke Amazon. I have to honestly say we probably broke Amazon because Amazon took away all of those threads and all that stuff. They took it away. They just now you're only able to do the review and that's it. You can't do the whole long dialogue thing now. But I don't think that anyone had a 5,000 posts a thread. So I think we may have broken. But the point is that I still go online on Facebook many times. We have a club on Facebook where we deal with atheist evolutionists. We have a Facebook club called the Evolution Delusion. So there I go there sometime. So that's really where I go as online sometime. I don't really go to their website or their sites because on their websites they have control, and I don't want them to have control. So I think I make them come on mine. But that's really where most of the place I have it because people just don't want to. They like to argue and fuss with you when they don't. We're not in front of your face. And because it's easier to look up their stuff and to go and get their little links to their different social media with or atheist websites and then just post it up in and then troll you with it with that. So that's really I can always delete that, so it's not a problem. But that's the only way I get it now. I don't really get too many in-house discussions, but I enjoy the in-house discussions. I do, really do.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, God bless you. I'm looking forward to we get more people on our side to really prepare ourselves to be more proactive. Whenever I see something in the media or article, or even a video on YouTube that attacks someone that I know that's a creationist, I'll do a rebuttal to it, and then I'll challenge them to rebuke me. I've done that twice so far. I did it twice with someone that attacked Carl Warner's material. I did it once with someone who attacked and it's really strange. When I do that, a lot of times they won't respond. They really won't respond, but sometimes they do, but very rarely do they respond. I haven't gotten any response for the articles that I did against the evolution wars or the God versus science, and that's been up for years. I did an article. Where I think you'll find this interesting. You know that there's a quote in the Richard Lewontin's review of Carl Sagan's book, A Demon Haunted World, that was published in Time magazine back in 1997. Well, that article has been more quoted than any other article I can think of by creationists and evolutionists. That in spite of statements, we cannot allow the divine foot in the door. That has been quoted profusely. So I went online one day. I was online on Amazon. It happened to be back then when I was debating with Christian and them. Somebody asked. I quoted that quotation, and one of the atheists, accused me of quote mining and of taking Richard Lewontin out of context. So I said, okay. I said, tell me how. He said because what he was saying he was not saying what you said he said, and I said he did say what I said he said, and what you're saying is not what he said he said. What he said. So anyway, I found out that what he did was rather than him address the actual statement that I was referring to, he looked at a portion of the statement that was a part that I was not referring to because I tried to use the whole quote to give context. He rather than take the statement that I was using, and this is another one of their tactics, he jumped to another topic and then accused me of misrepresenting that statement. And that's when I said, well, I wasn't referring to that statement. I was referring to this one here. So my point is that as a result of that, I decided to go online and actually read the entire article over again and do a point by point review of the article. And I did that because when I went looking for someone who did a review of it, I couldn't find it. I couldn't find it anywhere. Nobody had done a review of Richard Lewontin's article, although they quote it all the time. So I did a whole point by point refutation. I put it up on my Booksies, and last I looked, it has 5,000 reads. Now the strange thing about that is that of all the 5,000 people that read it, only one person commented on it. Now I find that strange, and I was very curious to know why. Because in the article, I accused Richard Lewontin of writing that article as a damage control piece. And if you read it, you'll find out why. In that article, he mentioned several times, more than twice, that he had a debate in Arkansas, him and Carl Sagan debated some creationists in Arkansas. Every time he mentioned that debate, he refused to mention the names of the people that he debated. Now, remember, he's writing this article some 35 years after the event. And yet he refused to even say their names. Wouldn't even tell you the degree they had or the college that they were from. Just dogged them. So, and then in the article, Richard Lewontin says that the debate took place in 1966. So, I'm sorry, in 1964. So I went around trying to research to find the debate. Couldn't find it nowhere. And I couldn't understand why. And then something happened. I forgot what happened, but somehow I ran across an article that had something about the debate, and it was 1966. So that's when the debate took place. As a result of that, I contacted a university that had the old actual audio of the debate, and I purchased those audios so I could sit down and listen to the debate. Because in the article, Richard Lewontin said that he couldn't understand why the public that was at the debate said that his team lost the debate. So I listened to the whole debate. I wrote an article on the Richard Lewontin demon millions and millions of demons article, a review of Carl Sagan. And I'm looking for people to read it and kind of get back to me. I got all these people, all these reads, but no one's really responding. And I put a lot of work into that article, into that paper. So anyway, I said that to say that I do this in order to push back on the enemy and make available to people who are trying to get the truth material that they can take a look at when that no one else wants to put out. So I'm hoping I'm encouraging other people to do that as well. Like I said, I also called Claudia Wallace when she wrote the article, the Evolution Wars. I wrote a response to it. I never sent her the response because I knew her mentality, she wasn't going to receive it. But I did call her and got her on the phone actually, and was able to talk to her about the article she wrote. And I was telling her that her article was unbalanced and unfair. And she said she didn't write it as an opinion piece, so it was pretty balanced. And I told her it wasn't. And I kind of was very nice to her though. The point is that I contacted her. And the point that I'm making here is that we have to be more proactive and letting people who are doing this lying know that they're not going to just get away with it. We're not going to let them get away. We're going to stick it to them.
May I ask, what classes did you teach, and how did you not get fired?
Good. That's an excellent question. Well, actually, I didn't teach a class. I was an administrator. I was an administrator. I wasn't a teacher. Thank God I wasn't a professor. I would not. These days, no. But I was an administrator. I supervised communications. I handled their. I was, in fact, I ran the mail room of the college, and I worked with the phone system, and I think that was the mail room, the phone systems, and the computers. So I supervised those things. So anyway, but what I did was, because of my position as an administrator, and only administrators could be moderators over clubs, I was able to help my students to maintain their Christianity and their faith while they were in college. So since I wasn't a professor, I didn't have no problem with that. But I had a chance to talk to a lot of them, and I really had a great time with them. I really had some great conversations. When I had my events, I invited people like Jonathan Savati to come in to Skype in and Zoom in and talk to our classes. So we got a chance to mix it up with a lot of the professors, the biology professors, the chemistry professors, education professors, and we always came out on top. And I think that I planted some good seeds in those people.